Over the last 14 years, a new treatment to help people with addictions has been developed in South Africa. The approach was discovered and researched here and is as yet little known outside this country. Warren has been addicted to Welcanol for the last 5 years, and today he is receiving this treatment. Detoxification with nitrous oxide gas, or Nitrox Detox for short. Sister Joy van Hemet is keeping a watchful eye on him and adjusting the mix of nitrous oxide and oxygen to suit him.
I've sort of estimated to myself that 6 is probably a good mix for him. I took him slightly higher and he was definitely not comfortable, so then I bring it down and start again. But it's very patient dependent. I find if they've drunk recently too, I need to go higher than I would have normally.
The patient remains conscious throughout the hour's treatment, and we wanted to ask Warren how he was feeling, but he didn't feel like talking at this point.
No. You don't want to talk, Warren.
Okay.
I've had patients who've talked right through the most sort of intimate details. Other patients have cried, I've had laughter, conflicting emotions all the way through.
When Warren's hour was up, a GP who has pioneered using this approach checked up on him. The treatment always takes the same form: 20 minutes of pure oxygen to start with, then 20 minutes of a mixture of oxygen and nitrous oxide, then another 20 minutes of pure oxygen to finish off. Its main purpose is to reduce withdrawal symptoms from drugs or alcohol.
The objective signs of distraction have gone, they've left Warren. The fleeting glances, the agitated eye movements, there's absolutely no tremor in his hands at all. And he feels much more relaxed about it now.
Yeah, much more relaxed than I was just now.
And his cravings?
Well, I haven't had time to think about it yet, but I feel better. My palms will stop sweating and that.
Some of us have come across nitrous oxide at the dentist. It's the gas they use to help nervous patients relax. At higher concentrations it can be used as part of an anesthetic, but it's actually at the lower doses that it's used in the Nitrox Detox process. Nitrous oxide is in fact commonly known as laughing gas, and the detox process is based on research done by Dr. Mark Gilman and a colleague psychiatrist Fred Lichterfeld. In the early 1980s, their research produced a major breakthrough when they showed that gas played a role in transmitting messages within the brain. But this theoretical advance also had practical results when they saw nitrous oxide was helping patients get over the effects of withdrawal from alcohol.
The people who actually have to deal with the patients on a 24-hour basis, the nursing staff, they are the ones who approached Dr. Lichterfeld and I to use the treatment in the first place, because it was so much better than the treatments that they'd used, in which they used sedative medications which knock the patient out for 2 to 3 days.
This is the traditional approach to treating addiction: heavy drugging of the patient over an extended period to get him through the withdrawal process. It was at the Wedge Clinic in Johannesburg that they first started using an hour-long session of Nitrox Detox as an alternative. Maureen Miles, now matron here, was involved with the first clinical trials on alcoholic patients 14 years ago.
If you see somebody who's really withdrawing from alcohol, it's not a very nice thing. You know, he really feels terrible. So when we saw the rapid relief from the symptoms, I thought, you know, we're onto something good here.
Dr. Gilman and his colleagues carried out further research into the nitrous oxide treatment at Wedge Gardens, and it turned out to be as promising as they had hoped. Research papers were published in local and overseas journals, and gradually they obtained more understanding of how the process worked. It seems that nitrous oxide helps patients in 2 main ways. It reduces withdrawal symptoms by occupying the receptors in the brain left unoccupied when patients stop using drugs or alcohol. And the second way it benefits these patients is by stimulating their endorphin systems, which are often at a low ebb because of their addiction. The result? A new feeling of good health.
One of the effects that nitrous has is it kickstarts that endorphin factory in the brain, and the person will start to produce endorphins again, and that feeling of well-being will return, and there is a significant reduction of craving.
One patient to feel the benefit of nitrous oxide treatment at Wedge Gardens Clinic has been Pete Nell, who admits he has been an alcoholic for many years. He in fact started coming here when the general approach was still to use sedatives.
Well, Derek, I must tell you honestly right now, if you give me a drop of whiskey right now, I promise you, the first bottle store I get to, I will definitely buy 2 bottles of whiskey. And it will not end there. It will carry on from there until I drink myself until I'm unconscious.
Pitt, you've been having treatment here for something like 8 years, in fact, since this section was built.
I was one of the first patients. The building was still creaking and what have you.
And you were still creaking?
I was creaking, I was definitely creaking. But then they did not have the gas treatment and the treatment which is available right now.
Let's compare the 2 treatments. How is the sedative treatment for you?
Sedative treatment to me is more like I'm having another drink. By the end of the sedative treatment, I crave more for a drink than what I did before.
And what difference is there with the nitrous oxide treatment?
The first time I went on it, I was very negative about it. I thought, you know, what are they putting on me here? I can't even smell this stuff, you know. Because they took me one out, I came in as dead. The doctor didn't give a sixpence for my life. And they decided they're going to put me onto gas while I was unconscious like this. And within an hour and a half, I was up and about. I already had my shower. I was properly dressed and I was walking around and communicating like it, and nothing had happened.
The Nitrox Detox approach has not meant a final cure for Pete Nell's alcoholism. He still has occasional lapses and comes into Wedge Gardens for the gas treatment. But now that sedatives are not used on him, he recovers much more quickly and he is not exposed to drugs which are themselves potentially habit-forming. The Nitrox Detox process has been used here at Wedge Gardens since 1979 with impressive results. But considering the clear benefits the treatment seems to have, it's surprising that it hasn't had a wider application throughout South Africa and indeed around the rest of the world.
Well, I think the first thing that one must understand is that it was discovered between 1980 and 1990. Now, if you remember, South Africa was extremely popular over those years.
With whom we don't know.
Yeah, but we're still looking for the people we were popular with. But the problem, so there is no doubt that a lot of the work that came out of this country was ignored by all and sundry. And the second problem is that there's no doubt that the medical profession is extremely conservative, and with good reason, because there are all kinds of claims made, and many treatment which appear to be scientific at first are often shown not to work particularly well later.
Dr. Gilman also mentioned that widespread use of Nitrox Detox is against the interest of some pharmaceutical companies, since it cuts down the use of certain drugs. But there have been specific concerns about the approach. One of the fears expressed about this treatment is that it could become addictive in itself. In other words, that people could come to depend on this gas as much as they had depended on alcohol or drugs. And have you found any signs of addiction towards this treatment?
We haven't, you know, we've been doing it since 1980. We did the trials in 1980. I can honestly say we've never had people coming up to the detox to continually want some more nitrous oxide, you know, or another fix.
Nitrous oxide has in fact been in medical use for nearly 150 years. And the evidence shows that the risk of physical addiction is negligible, particularly when compared to the sedatives it is replacing. We approached several doctors in related fields for comment on why the treatment seemed to be so slow in gaining approval. Many of them said that they didn't know enough about the technique. Others expressed reservations. 2 psychiatrists said that the scientific basis of the technique might be unsound and not enough clinical trials had been done, but neither was available to be interviewed. Dr. Gilman responded that the criticism about clinical trials seemed strange because some 10,000 patients have been treated at Wedge Gardens with this technique.
You know, they can have their opinion. I mean, if they'd like to see the many publications that have appeared in the international scientific press, British Journal of Psychiatry, Lancet, British Medical Journal, etc., perhaps they'd change their minds. But in any event, my point is this: the proof of the pudding is in the eating. It works, it's recognized by the medical authorities.
Although Nitrox Detox created a stir in the media some years ago, last year it was finally recognized by the Medical Association of South Africa as an official treatment, as well as by medical aid schemes. But some suspicion remains that the delay in its acceptance was not for scientific reasons alone. Is it possible that the slow spread of nitrous oxide as a treatment is actually due to infighting within the medical fraternity?
There has been what you could perhaps term as infighting. I would say that a lot of it is skepticism, perhaps professional jealousy amongst people who work very closely with substance abuse. There have been various personality clashes, but the use and development of a technique like this should transcend that.
The Nitrox Detox treatment is gradually spreading in this country, as well as overseas, notably in Finland. And it has found a new application with cigarette smokers like Fred Newman. Fred runs a second-hand car dealership in Pretoria and used to be an 80-a-day man. But the ashtrays on his desk are now for customers only. 2 weeks ago he had a serious neck operation, but his doctors would only perform it if he gave up smoking. So he entered a clinic in Johannesburg for a 4-day treatment with nitrous oxide.
After that, 50% of the absolute crave for the cigarette's gone, and the other 50% is entirely up to yourself. The willpower that you actually want to stop smoking, and that's what happened to me, and I will never touch a cigarette again.
So you reckon without this gas you wouldn't have been able to give up?
I must be quite frank, I doubted whether I would have been able to give up.
No one is claiming that the nitrous oxide treatment is a total cure for addiction. But by helping the patient to deal with the withdrawal symptoms, it does at least give him or her a breathing space to help overcome the habit. So far, Warren has had a month's breathing space from his addiction to Welcanol. Prior to this, he had gone from rehab center to try to beat his habit, but without success. A month ago, he had an extended treatment with nitrous oxide. And a few days ago, he went back to his GP for another session to help him control his cravings.
I'm trying to go on my own, but if I need the gas, I'll take it.
Warren, how confident are you now that you can stop drugging?
I'm trying to. I'm taking it day by day, and for the sake of my family, okay? I hope I can stop. I've got two choices in life. I've either got to stop drugging and live, or carry on drugging and die.